Thank you so much for joining us today for another episode of What's Your Why Wednesday. Today, I am joined by Elizabeth Cassidy. She is an Air Force veteran and a branch manager at Future Home Loans. Now, normally at this point, I am stating that we accidentally come into the mortgage industry, but that's actually not the case with Elizabeth. She deliberately made a conscious decision to make a shift from the real estate side over to the lending side a few years ago. And all of this lines up with her personal why. So Elizabeth, number one, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks
and let's get started with, tell us, what is your why that aligns to the mortgage industry?
Well, as you said, I am an Air Force veteran myself. My husband is still serving Air Force today. My biggest why is serving the other men and women that have put on the uniform right next to me. I do a large amount of my business as veterans, active duty members, people that have earned the benefit of the VA home loan. And it's just a fulfilling reason to get up every day and know that I'm going to have an impact on a veteran and make sure that they can obtain a home that they otherwise thought was an impossible feat. I don't shy away from it. I know it's considered to be a stickier process in the mortgage industry with some of the heavier regulations and the hoops you have to jump through, and it doesn't scare me. So I love doing it. I love talking to veterans and showing them how they can start building their portfolio and their wealth while they're sometimes still active duty.
Absolutely. And number one, thank you for your service, your husband's service, and thank you for your mission and your why of taking care of our very valued veterans. And I'm curious, and this is kind of a side question that we don't normally get into, but listening to you, do you think there's a lot of misinformation or lack of information and knowledge to our veterans to where they just don't know what's available to them?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest, and we could have a whole hour.
Yeah, I bet.
My topic. One of the biggest things that I realize is that they don't know that they can use that benefit multiple times in their life. And so some of them hold on to it until they're ready to retire. They spend a career of renting and throwing away money, not knowing that they can repeatedly use that same benefit. So when I get to say that to them, they're like, oh my gosh, it's like they're ecstatic. They're ready to rock and roll and do it because most of them recognize that building wealth, one of the easiest, I shouldn't say easy, but one of the most viable ways of doing that is home ownership. We all know that. I mean, you and I in this industry, we know very well that you want to build wealth, let's go grab a few properties and start building wealth that way.
It's life-changing. And it's not even just for you today. It's generational wealth, right? It's life-changing to the children and to the grandchildren that aren't even here yet. So you're correct. And I'm curious again, Elizabeth, and I know this is part of your mission and your why of, I'm sure, again, we can have an hour-long conversation, but what are some of the things that we can even do as professionals in this industry to help educate? Like what would you recommend?
I would recommend educating yourself on the ins and outs of the VA loan and just realizing how easy of a product it is for your buyers to obtain. If you are an agent that primarily handles listings, I would recommend that you educate yourself and educate your sellers on why it's a good thing to accept a VA offer when it comes in on your home, not just for your own moral compass, knowing that you are selling a home to one of our country's finest, but also just how well protected they are in the financing process and how easy, truly easy, when you have the right lender on your side, how easy the whole process is going to be start to finish.
Yeah, it's funny because, as you're saying, it's a little more complicated or whatever that really is a misnomer, because when you work with a company, right, an originator and a lender and everyone that are experts in VA lending, it's no different than anything else, right? You have your guidelines, you know what the process flow is. It really is not out of the ordinary. And you brought up a point. About accepting offers. We know what this market the difficulty and the shortage of homes and the amount of offers that are being put on these properties. And you keep hearing about how veterans and VA financing is being put to the bottom of the pile.
Oh, it infuriates
me. Of course.
It makes me crazy. And I am the type of lender that'll get on the phone with a listing agent and go rounds with them and tell them in a very respectful manner, but I'll tell them, listen, you're running the risk of that house not appraising for your conventional loan, for your FHA loan, or for your VA loan. Out of those three, the only one that gives you a chance to fight it is that VA loan. And when you have a lender like myself working the process with the veterans, I know how to fight it. So if you want the best chance of making sure that your seller's getting top dollar, you should choose the one that allows you to fight the appraisal.
That's a great point. That is an excellent point. And thank you for sharing that, because that really is something that maybe people aren't thinking about. So I think that is an excellent tip. Okay, so we know what your mission is. It's fully aligned. Obviously, you're making such a huge impact and difference in the lives of course, the veterans and all of the other families that you're serving. Yeah. Now, Elizabeth, I love hearing the stories of some of these monumental impacts that we've had on families. Can you share with us? Just pick one. I'm sure there's many. Pick one that really touched you that you could share.
Make sure I have tissues nearby, because this gets me every time. I active duty family. They were here in the Space Coast where I am, local to where I am. They were out house shopping. They had a very unexpected death in the family. The active duty member's father had very unexpectedly passed. And he was a wreck, as anyone would be when you're not expecting a parent to pass in a sudden manner. He was at the verge of just shutting down everything. He didn't have the headspace to handle it. He was way too emotional to even think about any other aspect of it. And myself and his real estate agent band together. We told him, listen, take the time that you need. I'll call you when it's time to sign your documents.
Oh, wow.
And the day of closing, he called me just overflowing with gratitude that we were able to just take just the burden and all of the ins and outs and not have to bother him, if you would, with every little bit and piece. Like, we just wanted to take, first of all, we wanted to take all of the pain that he was dealing with, because when it's someone that you grow close to very quickly and you're, digging into their personal life and their finances, you create a bond, so to speak. And so knowing that he trusted me enough and trusted the agent enough to say, you know what, I'm going through something rough, and I'm going to trust the two of you to manage the biggest purchase of my life while I sit back and properly go through the emotions of what I just went through. It was beyond flattering. He didn't have to do it. He was well within his bounds of being able to cancel with no penalty, financially or otherwise. But he trusted us enough and he chose to stick it out. And that story will forever. That is what really solidified to me that I'm doing more good in this space. And if I get to work with veterans like that all day, every day for the rest of my career, I will die a very, very happy person.
And that is a beautiful story. And I could almost picture this gentleman, like in my mind, as you're speaking, I'm envisioning, right? Mm-hmm. And you use the right words. Even they didn't have the headspace to deal with something like that. And we know, going through the mortgage process, number one, you're very vulnerable, right? You're exposing every intimate detail of you and your family's finances, and everything, right? And during this time of grieving and coming to grips with what just happened, it would be easy to shut down. It would be easy to say, I just can't. I can't deal with this. And we
expected him to.
Yeah.
I told him, you say the word, I will get everything handled. No harm, no foul. There's no reason why I couldn't do it. I would not be able to do something that big in my own personal life while dealing with that. So, but he was like, if it was anyone else, I would have just walked away, but I trust you. And so just keep it moving and call me when you absolutely need me, because I'm going to need some time. And we did. There was maybe one or two times I had to call him for a couple of things, and he totally understood. And the day of closing, he was the happiest person in the world that he was able to accomplish that. And he said that purchase was for his dad. So
that's right. He was watching.
Yeah.
And the reason why I love hearing those stories is sometimes, we all go through the day-to-day minutia of, listen, it's a love-hate relationship. We love the fact that each day is unique and you never know what you're going to run into, and you're really great at problem solving, and all of that is the stuff we kind of are motivated by and inspired by, right? But then other days it's like, man, if only it wasn't, always challenging. And what if it wasn't always problem solving, right? But then you realize it's certainly not just the problem solving, and it's not just figuring out the details. It's the people, it's the impact, it's the relationships. And we all need to be reminded of the difference we make in those transactions that we're working through with those families. Yeah. Oh, I love it. All right. Well, you kind of said it already a little bit when you said, knowing you're making that difference in the world, that is what you want to leave behind. So what does that legacy look like? What's that impact look like, Elizabeth?
I just want to know that I can touch and, in essence, protect as many people in our community that chose to put on that uniform to protect me and my family. Right. There's no other way to put it. If I can make sure that veterans are getting, and we can give all the spiels about lower fees and lower rates, and I've made a very conscious decision to align myself with a company that I know, I've seen evidence black and white. I know that we are all of the things that every lender wants to platform themselves to be. So I know that when I'm helping my clients get these houses, that there's no advantage taking whatsoever, that their money is protected. But more so than that, I want to just make sure that their plans are protected, their goals are protected, and their huge asset of now their property is protected. And when we can do that with such a level of integrity, knowing that at any moment, anyone can open any of my veterans' files, if you would, to see exactly what happened on them, and everything was of the utmost respect and honesty and integrity, that is really what makes me happy, knowing that I'm taking very good care of them. And I know that there's not another financial institution out there that could take better care of them than what I'm doing. And wow. I'm not going to be able to take care of all of them, but I'm going to try until the day that I stop working to take care of all of them.
And you use that word protect. And all I could think about is that obviously you're a veteran, your husband's a veteran. And as military, you're protecting all of us, right? And our families and our freedoms and everything else, right? And for you now as a civilian, now you're protecting, right? In a different way, in a financial and security and generational wealth and all of that. It's like interesting to see that shift, and so special. So special that you can do that. Well, Elizabeth, you are awesome. And we have to give a shout out to Leroy Romero, because he brought us together and he said, listen, you have to meet Elizabeth and you have to hear this why. And she's amazing. And I absolutely agree with Leroy. We thank you so much for everything that you're doing for the veterans, for all the families that you serve, for everything you've done for us and your family continues to do for us. And just keep shining brightly and keep doing everything you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. You as well. I appreciate it.